Welcome to Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I'm your host, Reggie Key, and today my special guest is Brendan Brown. Brendan, salute, man. What's up with you?
Hey, brother Reggie, what's going on, bro? I'm doing
Hey,
great.
you got it. I can't call it, man. I want to do something a little different. I started off doing this a couple months ago, and I would ask people this question, but I kind of got away from it. But I want to kind of, because you and I haven't talked like this in a couple decades, I want us to kind of like rekindle and remember where all this started. How do you and I meet, man? What do you remember?
Oh, what do I remember? That could be two different questions because my memory could be.
Here's what it is. We'll see if our memories line up or not. We'll
All
try.
right, cool. So definitely, yeah, definitely. We go back to UD.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yep, University of Delaware. And um, it was essentially through, it was a combination of BSU.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, I believe that's actually I think the fundamental meeting point there.
Yeah, the Black Student Union. I
Yeah,
feel like it might have been each one reach one too. I really can't remember.
yeah, it was. That was
Yeah.
our first. That was our that. Yep. Yeah. So it was before I even came because I transferred over into my sophomore year
Mm-hmm.
and yeah and went through each one reach one at that point.
Yeah.
Um, yep. So yes, I think like the summer of me coming into my sophomore year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about right though, right? And the reason why I wanted to kind of bring back this question is because though we haven't talked like this face to face in decades, we've been able to kind of track one another through social media. And you always left an indelible mark on me because in the space and in the season that I met you, you were in a transition. I do remember that. You were just coming out of some things and trying, you had this desire to be established differently than from whatever your past was. And I've seen you do that. I've seen you be able to do that. I always remember, don't you have a tattoo that says Flint?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you showed me that, and you was like, it was like
Yeah.
that was your thing. Like, look, man, this is where I come from, but this is not my station though. I'm going someplace else, and I need to figure out how to get there. And I remember, being a 19, 20-year old, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, okay, what role am I meant to play in this young man's life to help him get from where he has been to where it is that he wants and needs to be. So that I've always remembered that. I don't know if you knew that. Um,
No, I didn't. That's dead, man.
yeah, so it's been a pleasure seeing how you've been able to grow and expand from that point, and it's good to be able to reconnect with you, being with who you are and where you are now and where you're going. So yeah, man, salute to you again.
Man, I appreciate that,
This
man.
is long overdue.
No, I appreciate that, Reggie. I salute, man. Yeah, like that's funny. I mean, that's cool that you say that because that's it's cool that you express that. Um, because like you always stood out like essentially as that to me also. Like I had a level of respect for you and a level of respect for you that's like significant. So when I say significant, I mean like I kind of I don't know, like it's like a thing. I think we all have it like where I kind of choose who I kind of allow to
Yeah.
have almost a certain level of position to like basically like have some sort of influence on me, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so that's cool. So it syncs up. That's cool. That's cool. That I appreciate you expressing that.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope that as we go through this interview today, because I this is another part. I'm being like super transparent right now. I didn't feel like I had done you justice back then. I felt like I kind of lost sight of you. Never forgot about you, but lost sight of you and couldn't like be there in the way that I thought I needed to be. And so even as we go through this interview, though, there's some things that I hope I can reveal to you, and that the Lord reveals to me about you, that can keep you expanding and growing the way that He designed you to be. And so that's why we're going to get into this whole idea of genius. And so that brings me to my first question, Brendan. Do you see yourself as a genius?
Yes, in a word.
Okay, explain that in a word. Why you say in a word?
Well, I say in a word just to be clear, because that's something that probably because that's something that I've been I've been working on in this season is that's one, just being clear. Is I think we try to establish gray when we we're trying to shy away from being, you know. So one of the things that so that relates to the question, because I believe that every individual life form is genius.
Mhm.
Like, because we all carry the seed of genius. So it's like, it's a level of consciousness, I think, that I've that that I'm that I've been brought to, thank God. That,
Mhm.
like, to realize and recognize that I mean, but it comes out in different ways, though. Like, so,
Exactly.
like, I don't go too far, just like, but just expounding on it, like, it's it's like people would, like, for myself, I use myself, that's the best way. So I used to try and pin down, like, man, like, my talents or gifts, like, and say, like, like, oh man, well, I do this well, I do that well, and trying to say, like, I was operating as a fitness coach for years,
Yeah.
and a fitness coach and wellness coach. I would, like, expand on it. I remember I got into nutrition, and I was in the nutritional aspect of it, and you get into different things. I'm like, I'm almost kind of feeling, like, confused, like, wait, well, what exactly do I do, or what exactly are my gifts, or what exactly, and trying to put myself into that. But it was
Yeah.
more so like, you got different gifts and talents and parts and different parts of your genius that come out in different areas, and you can just, like, kind of just be easy that way, and just live in kind of fundamental, or like, have a fundamental approach of just um like, kind of just finding it's kind of like finding yourself naturally in an environment, as
Yeah.
opposed to, like, trying to be what you have pinned yourself down to being.
I get that though. You know
You
what
know
I
what I
like that you
mean?
said. You said this made me go into a different direction. I've never gone this way before. You said that every life form has genius. And so what that began, when I heard you say life form, to me, you're not speaking about just human beings anymore. And it makes me think of the scripture that says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. That gets into your design. When you operate how you were designed, you are operating in your genius. And it's not even your genius, it's the genius of God, because He's the one that crafted us. He's the potter, right? That put us together. And even these trees, right? When these trees function like they're supposed to, they're operating in a form of genius, because they help, they're the lungs of the world, right? Without the trees, we couldn't be here, right? And then you get into the bees. The bees, when they pollinate, they help make sure that the trees are sustainable. They help make sure that the plants are doing what they're supposed to do, so that we work in concert together. And genius is very much about not looking at somebody else and saying, like, well, you do this and you stay over there, I'm gonna stay over here. It's like, no, I recognize what you do well, and here's what I do well, and let's work together, because your genius, like you already kind of alluded to, does not look like my genius, and it shouldn't. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we are to not overact, not interact, and not have a plan to do something together. Like, we're all supposed to be working in tandem. There's a synergy that we're supposed to be tapping into. And so that synergy is the genius of God, really. So I like how you spoke that, because like I said, it caused me to kind of go into a different direction in my thought process.
Nice. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's my follow-up question for you. So it's good that you see that in a word you have genius. Um, a lot of people don't think that way. And there's nothing wrong. This, whether somebody affirms their genius in these interviews or not, there's nothing wrong. But the majority of people don't really have this self-affirmation and have done this self-exploration that it sounds like you have done, to be able to say, I have something that's unique about me, that's genius. So most people would say like, no, I don't have it. And so my follow-up question for them, which is the same one for you, even though you answered it in the affirmative, is like, who's the first person that comes to mind when you think of this word genius? Or I can rephrase it. Who do you think most people think of? Like, what name comes to mind when most people hear this word genius?
Uh, well, lots of people start to come to mind when you say that. Like, I mean, I could tell you who the first is, but it's only because of culture, the impression of culture.
That's important. So who is it?
So the first that comes to mind is Jay-Z.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But I tell you why. It's not because like I've thought about this and I'm like, man, Jay-Z's a genius. It's because it's because Jay-Z like he has a he has a reference to genius that was very impressionable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So his reference to genius causes me to think of him when like, so the word is connected to that memory of him speaking about everyone has to tap into their own creative genius.
Yeah.
Everyone has a genius talent. Your design and what you're supposed to do in life is figure out your genius talent, tap into it, and only do that. Like Jay-Z, that was Jay-Z speaking on the genius that he was speaking on specifically genius talent. But I remember like it just made sense to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, so I say cultural influence because obviously, Jay-Z, so not I don't mean obviously. I mean, I was, my eyes and I was always in the hip hop culture, rap culture. So
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, yeah, it just makes sense.
You don't got to explain it, man. There's no right or wrong. I mean, what you're saying that Jay-Z is saying is what this whole entire session is going to be about. So it's going to resonate with you. Um, and we're informed by culture and the majority of things that we do, right? Everybody's culture is different, so there's different influences on different people. But by and large, the name that comes up all the time for 90% of the time when I ask this question, who comes to mind is Albert Einstein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say him next.
Yeah.
He was the second name that came to mind.
Yeah, but there's something very interesting that happens with this cultural information that we get. We hear a Jay-Z or we hear an Albert Einstein, and we look at how they function, the high level that they function in their genius, in their talent, and we say, I don't function like that, so I don't have genius. That's typically what most people do. The most people who say, I don't know, I'm not a genius, is because they look at Einstein, they say, yeah, he deserves to be called a genius, and because he deserves to be called a genius, I don't.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Same thing with Jay-Z. Whoever it is, he operates at a high level in what he does, and so I don't. So I'm not a genius, and that's not how this should work. Like,
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, we shouldn't be disassociating and discrediting ourselves because we recognize genius in somebody else. Because in truth, Einstein is just one type of genius. Jay-Z is another type of genius. There is, as far as I'm seeing it, there's an infinite amount of genius because there's an infinite amount of people on this planet. It all comes from what the world calls genius, the Bible calls the mind of Christ. Right? And so the mind of Christ comes up because Jesus himself created everything because he was the word of God, and the word of God formed everything that we know and see, including the things that we don't see, the principalities and things that are in place in the heavenlies. His genius is inside of everything, right? And so when we begin to recognize and allow room for us to be included in that, it starts to make sense. Like, okay, that's why you can have the sciences and math and biology come up and be revealed to us through people who aren't even really Christian. Because whether you believe in God or not, like I saw this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said, hey, look, whether you believe in science or not, it's true. And I'm like, you know what, Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're correct, because faith works the same way. Whether you believe in God or not, he's true. And he exists in all things and manifests in all things and reveals things in order to get us to the next level and to advance us. He'll reveal things to people, whether they believe in him or not, just to get us in a place where we're operating in our greatest capacity. I'm gonna pause right there because I know I feel like I see your wheels
Yeah,
turning.
that's I mean, honestly, I'm taking that. I'm like, I'm absorbing that, to be quite honest. Like, I didn't want to, I almost didn't want to, I feel like what you're saying is, yeah, I mean, I'm feasting on that, to be honest. Like,
All right, all right.
um, yeah, I mean, like, I feel everything. I feel everything that you're saying. Like, I'm thinking of like, I was thinking about a lot of different things as you were talking.
Okay.
But one of the big things, so all right, so going back to one of your earlier points, people shot, so with your reference to Einstein and Jay-Z or anybody who's like viewed as let's say highly successful at highly successful at operating in their excellence or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
no,
how
that's
we want to. Their skill, craft, their beingness. Like I think that, all right. So anybody who's honest would agree that, like, and it is just the thing, you catch it. And I remember this, like, so I watch a lot of like motivational stuff, like even like clips and just like I mean from like, and this is one thing. I used to be a lot more judgmental on the vessels, right?
yeah.
But I started to realize that, like, it's like really wisdom comes from like you if you got an ear for
You paying
you know
attention?
yeah, like, so in other words, like, it's a lot, it's a lot more like, it's in a lot more efficient use of your energy to actually like engage, let's say, like your spiritual discernment, your discernment towards like every environment that you're in and all information that's coming to you, as opposed to like the vessel.
Yeah.
Because
Stop discriminating because of the vessel.
yeah, because we do it in the opposite way, where you give somebody credit and you let your guard down, because because you have this assumed position that they hold, and then you invite maybe misinformation, and because you just automatically validated the individual, you
Yeah,
validated the vessel.
that's a good
So
point.
now you're not listening and paying attention, and you just accepting stuff blindly. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's what religion largely does.
Yeah. So I was thinking about like that. So the part specifically about what you mentioned uh about why people like kind of shy away from that and feel like they maybe don't, like, everybody isn't genius, or everybody doesn't have genius in them, or some degree, or an ability to operate in a level of genius. And I think it's because the kingdom of darkness does an effective job in keeping people away from the truth,
See?
which is located literally within us.
Mhm.
So like, so everything that we're supposed to be, everything that we're supposed to really be pursuing for real is like in the opposite direction of the world. And I think when you don't when you don't realize that, or even when we do, it's difficult to do it because, for one, the habit of going out.
Mhm.
So like ambition, everything going out, everything is out. Like, what do I want to look like? Because everything that we think that is attached to any form of reward has something to do with the result or the appearance. So
Yep.
we want to like make ourselves up before we say we've done something or we've gotten somewhere. So it's like, but every genius, which is everyone, but everyone who's awakened to their own genius, I think, realizes that it's not the result that validates you.
Yeah.
Is operating in it. So like, the results are the results. I mean, you look at how many attempts or tries it takes the average person that you call successful to actually become successful.
You know how
Then
many
like,
times Tesla failed? Tesla failed. Not Tesla. Elon Musk. That dude had failure after failure after failure
that's what
after
too.
failure.
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
you know,
All of them.
I bring this into this equation when I talk to youth, because I say failed is an acronym for it's the first attempt in learning. And it's not a fail as long as you learn from it. But that's the thing that we hate though, and I'll talk about hate a little more later. We hate failing, especially if there's an audience, even if it's an audience of one, and that's us. We hate to fail, and so it'll make us not try. So we'd rather just be like, you know what, I don't have nothing special about me. I'll just be on the sidelines watching everybody else and showing you what everybody else does well, because I don't want to get out there and you see somebody else performing at a high function and you think that you have to start off like that, not knowing where they started. Do you know Einstein, when he was younger, I've looked at his story. His parents got a note home that said like, hey, basically, you might want to make sure he works with his hands because he's not getting this school thing. He's not fitting in. I think he heard that, but he didn't let the result, like you're saying, he didn't let the result of, hey, here's this letter coming home saying he don't fit in. He didn't let that stop his thinking process. Even when he got in college, right? He would be in classroom and the professor would be like, yo, Einstein, are you like, get out of my class, man, you're not focusing. He was staring out the window. But you know what he was doing when he was staring out the window? He was imagining what it would be like to ride a beam of light from the sun to the earth. And in that imagination, he formed the theory of relativity. But the teacher is like, get out though. Like, you don't fit here, you don't belong. And if he had subscribed to this discrimination,
oh man,
we would have been robbed of one of the greatest physics minds of all time, right? I still read articles where they're like, yeah, something else just got proved right that Einstein theorized, 100 years ago, but he didn't let the results of what it is that he was doing and how people interpreted it stop him, so that now he's the very epitome of what we think of when we think of genius.
You know what's funny? It's funny, like the one thing that progression depends on is somebody seeing it differently. Like,
Thanks.
That's the crazy part. Like, building, in order to build, you have to actually see what's not there.
You do.
Like,
hey, yo, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know what you made me think of? I think of Noah all the time. I'm like, Noah had built something that had not been seen before, for something that had not happened on Earth before, and people was probably looking at this dude like, "You crazy, dude! Like, what are you doing?"
You nuts, man. Yo.
Until that rain came and that flood came, it had no purpose. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's really just related to what you're saying. The things that you're saying spurred it on, like the thought. I mean, it's like basically in order for me to build or be innovative, I have to, like, this is the part where I think when we respect what's been done. And this was a big lesson for me. Okay. So we could build in a conversation in this way. Like, so well, we are building. This is fantastic. Oh man, my train of thought. So okay, so building. Okay, so we're sitting back, and I think like the confidence, let's go there. Like, so the confidence, when you become confident in your design, right? You become confident in like honestly. All right, this may be a little controversial, but I think it's necessary to say. So like we talk, like, one thing that I recognize and one thing that I remember. So I got literally like kind of like, you know how you always hear about, like, people tell you, like, people reference God. So we reference God about it. Like, it's like, and this is the thing. We've been referencing God for a long time, right? Like, and things, in terms of things on earth, have kind of like progressively gotten worse. And we could say, well, it's told in scripture, right? Like, I mean, which this is true, which gives us a level of like comfort. But like, it's like this for me. I started looking at, like, what about me? Because if God is supposed to, if God strengthens me and God does this for me, and then, like, God's not lacking. Like it's not God. Like we keep on talking about, oh, God is able and God, but why are you not achieving? Like,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
it's like, you know what I mean? So like, it's things like going all the way back to, well, no, I'm not a genius. It's like, why don't we, that like darkness is keeping us from the truth, which is that we are magnificent. And it's like, when you say it, it's like, it's this level of like, almost like arrogance and it's like, no, when all them clouds are removed, like you talk about truth, like truth is basically, darkness tries to get you to get you again to believe that you can assume something without actually being it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can lack integrity. You don't have to really be healthy. You could just get surgery and just do this and just do that and take pills and you can look healthy. You know what I mean? But being healthy requires actually changing the way you think, because it requires you to care about yourself in a different way. But we don't have that conversation. Instead, we'll just keep going to like, we'll keep going to, we'll keep going to the fast food joints, and we'll keep taking the easy way out basically with our nutrition, right? And we'll bless our food, we'll be thankful and all that. We'll put it on God, but we'll remove all of our own personal accountability.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, that's a small thing, because that's something we do multiple times a day, every day, eat.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're not willing to take up our own accountability with that, and people will turn to me and say like, well, you were a fitness coach or wellness, and it's like, no, it's not. Maybe I had more touch points with it, but I know plenty of wellness coaches, fitness coaches who don't have a healthy lifestyle. So they can still sell it.
Yeah.
And they just hit the gym enough, like, so they don't have to, necessarily be healthy. But to me, it's like, I started to look and value my life in time, like, which happens through the body. I feel like I just took enough space to recognize that and value that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just causes me to be honest. It's like, I can't eat like this.
Nope.
And say God is going to bless me with efficiency.
That's not how it works, right?
Yeah, it's on me.
You said the phrase personal accountability, and that's genius is largely about becoming accountable for what it is that you have possession of, right? And we have possession of a lot of things. And so what I heard you saying, reason why I'm over here clapping and grinning and smiling, is because it makes me think of Galatians 3:20, I believe. And it says, unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we can ask or think. And we stop right there. But there's more to the scripture.
Yeah.
The last part of the scripture says, according to the power that worketh in you.
Yeah.
But we keep putting the power back off on God.
Yeah.
Like, you do it. You do it. He's like, what are you talking about? I put you on the planet and made you in my image and likeness to work with you in covenant to subdue the earth and bring order to disorder. And like you said, the enemy though is here squatting. He's squatting on this planet. He's like, man, if humankind figures out the power that's on the inside of it, it's a wrap for me. And so he has to deceive. He has to leave us in darkness, which is to be ignorant. He has to make sure that we keep abdicating our authority so that he can continue to be the prince of the power of the air, right? But the authority is our genius, though, is the mind of Christ. So you saying this is exciting. I told you, man. I was like, when are we going to talk? Because this is good. We're going to vibe. So I gotta keep us moving forward, though. So the next thing that I want to put out there is this quote. Okay, this quote purportedly has been ascribed to Einstein, but now there's some debate. It doesn't matter who said it, but it works for me that I can transition from talking about Einstein to this quote that's been attributed to him. You let me know if you've heard this quote before, and then if you haven't, whether you've heard it or not, let me know how it hit you though. How do you process this? Are you ready for this quote?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here it is. It says, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Yep.
So you shaking your head. So you've heard that before.
One of my favorite quotes.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, why is this one of your favorite quotes, and
I
why
was going
are you now in the middle of this whole genius thing?
because it's exactly what we're talking about.
Yes.
Like it's exactly what we're talking about. It's all the elements of what we're talking about.
Yep.
It's all of the elements, because you got the one aspect that's just like kind of like the baseline, like, you know, obviously a fish belongs in water swimming. So if a fish is trying to climb a tree, it's probably not going to be very successful. So it's going to probably then spend time trying to add to its design, change its own design, its own natural design, because the whole time it's supposed to be swimming it's supposed to be in a different environment, but it's spending its time trying to be successful in an environment it wasn't designed to flourish in.
Something or someone told this fish that it does not belong in water, and this needs to be climbing this tree, and it's believed it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you had that, which describes a lot of what's going on Earth right now.
Yes, sir.
And that's in a lot of ways.
Yes, sir.
I mean, yeah, I'll come back that, but okay. Yeah, but just that element, and then the other element of that stands out to me is that is the fish essentially, the fish not like, basically the fish is striving. I see it as like the fish in that scenario was like striving and basically being driven by ambition, which is outside of self. So it's like if the fish was stopped, I imagine this quote in this way. It's like this the other element. If the fish would just stop and like be still, it would probably come to the realization that it doesn't belong there.
Yeah. You know how I see it in my mind? I always see like this fish. I see a tree and I see this fish struggling at the root of the tree, but then like a couple yards away is the ocean.
Yeah.
Like it's so close to it and it doesn't even know. Like it's just not even checking for it. And so that's a trick of the enemy. Like to say, don't look over there. Because you were mentioning this word design way before I say this quote. And it makes sense that this is your favorite quote because you've been implying it and inferencing it, you know, up until this point. Because like you said, a fish is designed. I mean, it has scales, it has gills, it's streamlined because this element is water. And when you take anything out of this element, it's not going to function at a high level like it ought to be. And everything starts right here. You already said that. So if a person is looking at Einstein, and in this metaphor, Einstein is a bear, this dude should be climbing trees. He's designed for trees. Mm-hmm. But if we keep looking at Einstein, like, look how well Einstein climbed this tree. Man, I can't climb this tree. I'm stupid. Like, no, you're not built like Einstein is built. Your design is different. Your element is different. Your lane is different. Stop trying to get into a lane that doesn't fit you, it doesn't suit you, and figure out what lane you're supposed to be in. And I mean, there's an advantage that we have as Christians to be able to talk and relate to our Heavenly Father, because, you know, I had this when I do this workshops with kids, I say, like, look, if you saw a tool lying on the ground, it was a hammer, but you had never seen a hammer before, you're like, what is that thing for? What would you do? You would go find the person who created the hammer and say, hey, what you make this for? And he would tell you to bash in nails, to, you know, and he would tell you you'd be like, oh, okay, bet, I got it. Why don't we do that with us? Like, we need to be able to communicate with our Father and say, how did you design me? What did you put me on this planet to do? And be confident that he's going to respond and show you. And there's a couple different ways. We're going to go. So I have an equation that he gave me that's in my book and that's in my workshop that goes through 3 components. And if you can identify what these 3 components are, you will unlock your genius. All right. And those components are your passion, your talents, and your purpose. And all these things are God-given, right? So you can figure out what each of these things are. You're going to find out your element. You're going to find out what you've been designed for, what's already in your hand that you're operating with or should be operating with. And you're going to be able to figure out, like, okay, I don't need to be busting my head up against this tree trying to climb it as a fish. I need to be in the water. Because I tell you what, man, if you ever see a fish, you know, flopping around out of water, put that joker back in the water and watch what happens. It's gonna come to life and it's gonna take off. You're not even gonna be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, true,
But what
right?
happens when a fish stays out of water too long though?
It dies. We
It
know.
dies,
Yeah.
right? And so the Lord has given me insight and vision. Like I just see genius, I just see dying genius all around me. And he's given me a job of revitalizing, resuscitating, and resurrecting the genius that I see around me in people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally. I'm still on passion because I took it passion, talent, purpose. Like, yeah, yeah, because what comes to mind with me is okay. So with the with all of that, with the synergy, passion, talent, purpose, like all of it, I see like confidence is like what it's all like kind of having an orbit around because
Okay.
I know like all right, so in my experience staying on this on the same fundamental topic, like I it's like you can see certain things, right? You can see how certain things come together, right? Like even when you become conscious of like, let's say like you become aware of your design.
Mm-hmm.
Like you become open to the information from the Father and you actually become like aware, like you start to see it, like, oh wow, I do that pretty well. I do, you
Yeah.
know, I, like you it's I think it still requires that confidence to say, I I'm basically I'm basically a part of life. Cause that's how I see it. Okay, that's another thing. That's how I see it. Like people talk about the Big Bang and stuff like that. It's kind of like I see it as like life. Like we call our Father, God, but it's like we know that God is formless in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but yet also like we already know like the mystery of I am, like like we can just the mystery of just the let's say the makeup of our designer and our creator, like and this is the part here that makes sense to me because you look at the 8th chapter of Romans about love and
Mm-hmm.
how essentially um the love of God essentially is incomprehensible. Like we won't we like you literally can't. Every time you think you figure it out, that's what it means to me. Every time you think you figure it out, it goes deeper.
Yep. Yep.
You're like, oh wow, oh my
The
wow, and
bottom
then
opens up.
here it is. Oh, you like, oh yeah. And then it's like, and then you're like, oh wow, and you just keep. But doesn't that sound like eternity or infinity or God?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm saying that to say, if you think you have God figured out, then you're already off.
Yeah.
Like, so if we can approach God in that way, then we realize what we're dealing with,
Yeah.
which is it figures you out. You don't figure. So it's like so check it out. So like when we looking in that direction, and I say that for a reason because it's because it's either there or it's the 3D. It's either what's done or is where it's coming from.
Okay.
You can't serve two masters. Like we can't be in spirit and flesh, and spirit and flesh, and spirit, and can't be double-minded. Can't be like so. All of these things say we either singled out to the light or we're like in darkness. That's it. Light came into the world, men rather chose darkness. So like it requires us to be pointed in that direction to realize like all the way like what we actually are.
Yeah.
If you still trying to if you looking at the world, if you're looking in this way, you looking at like the manifestation, trying to figure out like like trying to tap into that genius, that's where you stay spinning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's where you stay spinning, and that's the hardest thing to do because
Yes.
what you're convinced of is that everything worth anything is in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, who cares if I'm really healthy? I want to look like it.
Yeah.
I want to have a six-pack. I don't want to. So it's like, but you keep hearing the same thing, like outside the church, fall in love with the process.
That's easier said than done, right?
But how do you tap into that? It's the confidence that is what's most important. It's confidence. Like at the end of the day, if I don't have confidence that sitting in stillness, sitting in silence, and hearing from the Father is most important, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's confidence. Confidence is belief. Confidence is whisper. It's like building. So it's like take time to build the confidence that that's the most important thing for you. And you won't have to like convince yourself as often.
Yeah. The only thing that we really should be confident in is that God is who he is. That's why he said, just tell him I am sent you, right? If we understand that God is who he is, and we can't fully comprehend that, because there's people that ask me questions and I'll say in the instant, like, hey, I don't know that. Like, they'll ask me questions about God. I'm like, I can take the scriptures say this, but there's some stuff like I don't know. I can't comprehend the mind of God. I mean, it says it. We have the mind of Christ, but that doesn't mean that we can comprehend all things about him, because he said, my thoughts are as high above your thoughts as the heavens are above the earth. Like we're not supposed to. But if we place our confidence in him as a creator, and that he has a plan for us, and that he doesn't reveal the whole plan to us, because we'll jack it up, but just rely on that obedience. Like, hey, you said do this, okay, I'm gonna do that. You said I'm this, all right, I believe that, and then let that affirm you. Because like you said, you see confidence being at the center of the passion, talent, and purpose. But when you said that, I thought about humility, because this is why some people struggle with even being able to affirm that they're a genius. We focus on one side of humility, which says, do not think too highly of yourself. But there's another side of humility, which also says, do not think too lowly of yourself either. That's what true meekness is. Like, because you're made in the image and likeness of God, you should hold some value for yourself. Because if you don't value yourself, then you're not valuing the person whose image and likeness you've been made in. But you don't do it at the cost of belittling somebody else. So there's a balance, right? And a lot of people feel weird saying, yeah, I'm a genius, because they're like, well, that seems arrogant. We're not trying to be Kanye West out here, right? We're not trying to overplay this genius that we have, but we're trying to self-affirm, because you are of no, the scripture talks about, avoid the person who has a form of godliness but denies the power thereof, which is like having a six-pack but having no real health in your life, right? It says, from such turn away. And we have to be affirmed enough in who we are in Christ, so that people aren't turned away from us. Somebody said to the person who I interviewed last week, he said, hey, look, everybody has different talents. He's like, it might be somebody out there whose talent is their beauty. But he said, what happens once somebody is drawn in to you by your talent? And in this example, the person who's beautiful, what does the person do with their talent and that attraction from there? That is either going to give honor to themselves, or it's going to give honor to God.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
And so this genius is self-affirming, but it's self-affirming so that we can function according to how God designed us, right? And so just like how I'm gonna keep moving us forward, just like how I kind of deconstructed this word genius and kind of built it back up, I'm going to do that with passion. I think you're going to dig this, Brendan. So passion, what words come to mind when you hear this word passion? Because you already focused in on it. I heard you. But what comes to mind when you think of passion?
Passion. When I think of passion, it's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Passion is passion. Yeah. I can articulate it in that way. What comes to my mind is care. It's this deep care, concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a big that's a big part of the whole connection with confidence to me, is because it's a personal thing for me, because what you actually care about is it can give you a lot of information about your mission.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you know, like it's like, I say it the way I said it because I question my passion in past times. Like you know what I mean? Like, especially as a young, like as a much younger guy, like definitely like, you know, like I think I was swayed a lot, honestly, like you know, like young in my younger years, because I felt for some reason I felt like there was always like some greater information like somewhere outside myself, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize it. I didn't realize it that that's actually what it was. So like so so a lot of what was naturally coming from within me, I questioned, and like you know, like it kind of naturally,
Can I say this though?
including passion.
This is kind of where I feel like I met you.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
met you
yeah,
like at UD. You were in that phase,
yeah.
which is one of the reasons why, I'm so glad to see you now, because I don't see you in that phase anymore. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, like, yeah, yeah, and that's one thing. Like, I think that, well, not even I think, I'm convinced that the things that we experience, you know, like the things that we experience on our path are like, they're ultimately is for us to be able to share. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, a large part of my challenge and my obstacle had been self-confidence. And when I say self-confidence, I don't mean like, you know, like um like thinking a certain way about yourself necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I more so mean it in a way of like being confident in what's in you, being
Yeah.
confident in what you are, how you are,
Yeah.
everything about it. Like you're actually perfect. Like, to imagine that first, because for someone who suffers with self-confidence, is that's like one of the furthest things from your mind. And when I say that, I mean, how else can you be utilized by a perfect God, like if your design wasn't exactly what it was supposed to be?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's like the hammer, right? Like if that hammer
Yeah,
is off, if it's
it's
not crafted just right, it's not going to hit this nail the way it's supposed to.
exactly.
But you have to trust that the maker, despite being born into sin and all this other type of stuff, when you reconnect through Jesus and he gets you right like you're supposed to be again, like your form, your design is restored. That's what salvation is. Salvation is, when I hear the word salvation now, I think of an old busted up chair that gets salvaged. It gets scrubbed down, it gets stripped, and then it gets built back up. It gets a new finish put on it, and by the time you finish with this salvaged piece of furniture, it's restored to its original design, if not better, right? And so that's what all of us go through. It's a process that each of us has to go through, but it's about understanding. I love what you said when you start talking about passion, is that it's how you begin to connect and help others. I'm paraphrasing what you said, but I'm gonna get back into it this way though. A lot of people, when they think about passion, they think about like love, right? I'm going to come from the exact opposite end of the spectrum. And I'm going to say that when it comes to your genius, your passion is actually closer tied to what you hate.
I feel that. Nah, I feel that. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Nah, you're good though. Because you've heard the phrase like I hate that with a passion. When you start to focus in on something that's operating in your sphere of influence and it's impacting you in a negative way, and you're like, I don't like how this makes me feel. I feel like a fish out of water. Whatever this thing is making me feel like I don't belong. And you said it earlier. You was like, look, everybody needs to feel like they have a place in the world. And if you don't feel like you have a place in the world, that affects your confidence, and that affects you how you impact others and your environment around you. So when you start to focus on what is it that, a lot of it comes from our childhood. Something will happen to us that'll impact us in a negative way, and we'll be like, "Ooh, I don't like that." And so when you get older, now you have this trauma that you're dealing with. And when you see it operating still in the world, you're like, that's still doing that. I hate that. And when you see it impacting other people the way it impacted you, you're like, oh, I really hate that now. And what'll begin to happen, Brendan, is you might start saying stuff like somebody should do something about that. And you'll keep saying like somebody, and at the end of the day, if you keep pointing at that thing and talking about it, that somebody is you.
Yeah. I yes, 100%. I'm sitting here and what's like blaring for me right at this point is there's I can remember like coming to the realization. I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza a lot.
Okay.
And how he speaks on well, he speaks on several topics, but he speaks on like the really really the it's more like a psychosomatic science.
Okay.
And yeah, essentially basically how pretty much the mind influences everything in the physical. Like you know, and like so anyway, okay, well I'm going on to that. Like basically I realized I started to like question what emotions and feelings were really about. This is one of the things I think that this is why we shot like kind of taught not to question things in a way because or like taught that questions are bad because questions is that's how we get free. Like we start asking questions. So like and we refuse to accept the answers that don't make sense. So we keep questioning. Like that's how you actually like it's crazy because you know that's how you learn, right? Like that's how you but anyway, like so so it's like it's questioning like the feelings and emotions. Like I'm like, man, you know, if because it's that idea of like everything being exactly what it's supposed to be. So it's like, why do I feel badly about this, or I feel like anger of this, or I feel, and I started to invite the idea that I could like own the feelings in a way, like and not and they don't need to be like good or bad, but they could just be signals. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, so if you feel like, and this relates to what you're saying. So at that point, it's like when you feel upset about something, you're not upset. You're experiencing the feeling, the chemical experience, truthfully, of being upset, or let's say, angered about something. You're experiencing that chemical effect. So when you look at it like that, it's like you find that like you're actually sitting outside of what you call the emotion.
Okay.
And then like, and then you can figure out that it's like it's telling you something. So what it's like it's the difference of turning towards and turning away from. So it's like, man, I don't like that. Why do I not like that? Versus I don't like that. Get that away from me. It's two different responses to not liking something. You can dislike something and appreciate it.
If you understand how it informs your interactions with the world and the people around you. So I feel exactly what you're saying. I got an actual example that perfectly encapsulates what you're saying, right? Because the thing about, and people don't like this word hate, but I use that word first of all because when I go in schools, if I can't get kids to talk about anything else, they'll talk to me about what they hate, like in a second. And so I use that to kind of start to get them thinking and engaging them in conversation, right? And what I can't say in school is the thing that we hate. It's a thing that God hates because He hates wickedness. He hates disorder in the world. And when He put us on the planet, this race of human beings, the Adamic race, He said, all right, I'm going to grieve each of your hearts in a way that grieves my heart so that you do something about it. This goes back to what you were saying. Like, we can't keep putting things back on God because He's like, nah, dude, like I have restored authority in you through Jesus Christ. Do something about this thing that you see that's not operating as it should. Stop looking at me like I'm supposed to do something. I've already done something. I made you, right? And so that hatred that we have, or that grief, if you will, that we have, is something that's God given because He's like, I need you to fix that. I see the brokenness in the world, and I need you to address that particular brokenness right there. So check this out. Went to this school one time. And I would talk to these little boys, about 10 of them, third, fourth, and fifth grade, like all year. I went and would chop it up with them like every Friday. And they were all third, fourth, and fifth graders in one class all day. So they were what we would have called special ed back in the day, or what we call on an IEP or individual education plan now. So when I came into them, I'm like, what am I talk to these boys about? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna let them know that they're a genius. I was just kind of workshopping this idea. So I started telling them like, hey, look, you're a genius. And Brendan, they're like, dude, you talking to the wrong. They were this fish that was convinced that they should be climbing a tree. They was like, you talking to the wrong one. Like you already off to a wrong start. And I was like, okay, cool. You only accept that you're a genius. Y'all will roast one another all day and think that's hilarious. But when I call you a genius, you get offended. Like they were getting offended that I was actually trying to affirm them in a positive way, which lets you know that they were used to not receiving positive affirmations at all. So, because ADD, ADHD, behaviorally disruptive, all these other negative labels that they just got used to, right? So I said, all right, tell me what you hate then. And Brendan, these guys like came to life though they could never agree on anything. They couldn't agree on what to play, what game to play, when to play, what to eat, whatever. All of them universally told me the same thing. They was like, we hate school, Mr. Key, now what? And I said, well, I'm so glad that you said that. I understand. The teachers in the background like, why are you giving them access to talk about this, right? And I'm like, nah, listen to me. I said, I get that you hate school because this school makes you feel like you don't belong, right? The school system is broken and it's failed you and a lot of people similar to them. And I said, but check this though. The thing that you hate is the thing that you were put on this planet to fix. And so if you're telling me that you hate school, then I'm looking at 10 future educators. And they got real quiet. And I was like, no, what's wrong? Like, what have I said? And it was like, it's to your point. See, their hatred was going to make them, if nobody had come in and given them this word, their hatred was going to make them run away from school. But in fact, they should be doing what you said. Their hatred should drive them to it. Like, why do I hate this though? Let me figure out what's broken about this thing so I can get it in a place where I don't hate it anymore. And so I let them know, Brendan, why they hated it. I said, hey, look, there are 8 different ways to learn, 8 different learning styles. And I say, at most, school is teaching you 3. It's teaching you from a logical perspective, the left brain thinker. It's teaching you from a visual perspective and an auditory perspective. But that's not your learning style. And so because that's not your learning style, when you get presented with this information every day, it's like it's being presented to you in another language. And you're like, I feel dumb. I don't feel like I belong. Why is everybody else getting this? And it doesn't make any sense to me. I hate this place. Like, do you think the fish likes where it is? The fish that's trying to climb this tree is probably like, I hate this tree. I hate that I'm in this. I don't feel right, but I don't know anything else to do. Yeah. And so it's all about finding your element, finding your lane. So I told them, like, you're future educators. If you take, and I was like, you're probably like a kinesthetic learner, which means you got to be moving around, but you keep being told to sit down and be still. You're probably an exploratory expeditionary learner, which means you got to learn with your hands, but you're being told, keep your hands to yourself. You're probably a creative right brain thinker, but they keep trying to force you to think about things from the other hemisphere of your brain. And so you're like, this doesn't fit well for me, but you can't articulate why you feel like a fish out of water. And so I said, if you take your learning style and run towards the school and then become an educator, your learning style then informs your teaching style. And now with your learning style as your teaching style, you're going to reach other people, other students who have the same learning style as you. And now they're not going to feel like a fish out of water anymore. And I was like, that's game changing. That changes the entire system. Now you're plugging in missing components to this broken system of the school and you're improving it. And so I'm like, that's not just relevant for the teaching for schools, that's relevant for any industry in this planet that involves people, because there's always somebody that's being pushed to the side and marginalized and made to feel like they don't belong.
Well, what you're talking about is a total shift of the world's model.
Yep.
Because see, this is where I see is like, you're gonna have fragments of light, like everything that you said, right? Like the important thing is that this is why disseminating information is so important, because you can get this information by searching, right, and becoming aware of this information, and now hearing what you just said, let's say, and then you realize, and I'm a drop what I'm feeling about what you said. And basically, that what's actually inaccurate and it's been incorrect is our what we've been told of how we should actually think and look at the whole thing, which is we're trying to fit into a system as opposed to looking at us ourselves as correct and accurate, and then seeing where it may be that we can best be, let's say we can be most efficient, and we can look at which environment upon earth or environments of development on earth. But this is because the whole design of the systems that kind of that interlock for the world, and we know that the system of education is basically a funnel for the workforce, right?
Yep.
It's all essentially it all runs by control. So in order to best control a human being, you have to dumb a human being down. It's kind of like, you keep them. It's like the idea of the Matrix in the movie. It's like you keep a person alive enough to be efficient as a worker, but you don't tell them what they really are. Because if you realize what you actually are, you would never ever sell yourself that short.
Right.
You would decide what you wanted to do with every moment of your life. You would realize that you actually don't owe anyone a moment of your time but your creator. And you would actually be most efficient, most happy. You wouldn't be led by fear. There wouldn't be any terror, any torment, anything like that. It'd be totally, it would literally be bliss. You would be back in the garden, essentially, because that's the government of God. You know what I mean? But the government of the world keeps you separated from yourself. So the one thing that you always question is you. So it's like, why do I feel bad? I don't want, why am I sick? I need a pill. Why am I? We constantly turning from ourselves, as opposed to inviting our experience and saying, oh, what's going on with me? Reggie, when I tell you how long it took for me to shift the way I treated myself, to now where I treat myself like I'm my parent in a way, I treat myself well, like I take care of myself. I look out for myself. You know what I mean? It's like I care about what goes in my body. I care about what goes on my skin, what environment I put myself in, who I spend my time with, because I realize that it's my show to manage. You know what I mean? I'm the government of this experience, so to say. So it's like I can't control things that are happening, and that I control a very small degree of that, which is me and my actions. But the things that's going on around me is like what I can control is how I see it and how I experience it all. So, but what that requires is looking at me as perfected through essentially through the use of through in the hands of the one that created me. So it's like it's literally letting go and just trusting it. It's not even any religious ritual. It's not like or because all that stuff is like we're just convincing ourselves through ritual that we are. So it's like we're just using another thing to convince ourselves outside of ourselves. It's literally knowing. It's like I know. So you know what I mean? So like that right there, I think is fundamental for any operation, any like substantial time operating in like your authentic genius and really being like no longer influenced and motivated by the world. Because that's the thing, like how do you get to the space where you realize that what is inside of you is more valuable than what's outside of you? Because
he that's in you than he that is in the world.
Because like how do you really get to where, because this is the thing, that's where actually silence becomes important. Because you're like this, no. what's inside of me is way more important than what's going on out here. So I don't need to make sure I know what's on the news. I need to make sure I'm hearing what's in me.
Hey.
You know what I mean? So everybody else is like turning the TV on and you're turning it off.
Right. Man, you just made me feel better about the fact that I don't keep up with the news. Because I'm like, I don't want to be in reaction to everything, to every input, to everything that's coming into me. Because, you know, the body is a sensory thing, right? And we have to be able to shut some things out in order to hear what's really going on up there. I'm like, I don't want to be reactionary to everything all the time, because if I keep going from news station to news station, that's all I'm going to do is be reactionary.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, man. My question for you, you know, having redefined what passion is as it relates to something that you hate, what is it that you hate, Brendan?
So something, when I say it in this way, I hate, I probably in a word, it would be abuse. And that includes bullying, because that's an abuse of power.
Yep.
Or strength. So yeah, because that's what I would like. That's kind of more of the act that I despise. Like, I despise the abuse of power. Anything really that keeps people from anything that keeps people from being able to fully operate and function as like their total best selves.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why is like abuse, and specifically an abuse of power, because I believe that like the subject that you know that this is all around, which is genius, individual genius, which is connected to collective genius, because that's where it exists and where it exudes from. But anyway, it's like, I believe that every life form, go back to that, deserves to know that. Like everybody in my mind, everybody like deserves their best shot at being great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So an abuse like robs people of that. And I know that firsthand. You know what I mean? Like, whether, you know what I'm saying? Like, you being told that you're something that you actually not, you know, you being treated, you're being educated in the opposite direction of your natural design, like you're talking about, you know. So it's like, I'm sitting here thinking I'm dumb because I'm this genius artist, and you're trying to turn me into a mathematician. You know what I mean? Like, because you are dumb at recognizing talent.
Discriminating, right?
Yeah, like that's the, you know what I mean? Like, and I use dumb in that way, meaning like, you know, like void of the understanding.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah, but yeah, like, so yeah.
And that makes sense, like why you knew about this fish quote, and why you quickly, you know, it's one of your favorite quotes, because, you know, I never thought about this, but the person or the system that's in place in this quote, it has to be the world that's telling this fish that you should be climbing this tree. And that's an abuse of power. The world is influencing this fish to do something that goes against its nature, that's going to eventually kill it. But to what extent, though? Like, what it has some agenda, some reason for doing it. And so, you know, it's you know, we're combining all types of stuff. Now it's about, you know, choosing the red or the blue pill. You got to wake up. Like, you got to get unplugged and understand who you are, instead of being comfortable with being uncomfortable about what somebody else is telling you you're not. And so that makes sense for who you are, to say like the thing that you hate is the abuse of power, which leads to control that limits people from the full measure of who they can be.
Yeah.
So the next logical question is, so, you know, just really quick, this whole spin on passion, I didn't come up with this on my own. God gave me different pieces of it. He had me read this book by Mike Murdoch called The Assignment, which talks about, you know, identifying what you hate to figure out your assignment in the world, right? And so the next part of the genius equation is talent. And, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to kids back in the day, about the parable of the talent, and understanding that, you know, it was a physical piece of money, but it's also a parallel to it too, where there's, how are you spending this God-given talent that you have? and using it in a way that's giving him a return on his investment. And so when I start talking about talent as it relates to your passion, the question becomes, what is it that's in your hands? Like, you remember when God said, hey, look, I can use you, Moses. You're the humblest man on the whole planet. And I need to use you to free my people. And Moses, his first response was like, this is like them little boys. It was like, you forgot who you're talking to. I can't even talk right. I got a stutter. And he's like, man, first of all, who made your mouth? Like, why are you questioning who I'm saying I'm going to use? And then he said, look, I'll use your brother. Like, Aaron will speak for you. Did Moses accept that? Nah, he started talking again. He was like, well, he was still telling God what he wasn't or what he couldn't do, despite what God was telling him, I've designed you to do, right? So what did God say? He said, dude, what's in your hand, right? And Moses was like, I got this like raggedy staff. You know what happened? God told him to put the staff on the ground. It turned into a snake. He said, pick it up by its tail and it turned back into a staff. He was like, that's the type of power you got working with you. Now go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And so that's what our talent is, like that staff. It's something that's likely already in our hand that we're dabbling with, that we've explored, but we don't realize the true power of it when we begin to utilize it as a tool to address what's broken in our passion. So, something's broken in your house, you got to find a tool to fix it, right? So if passion is helping you identify by what you hate, the thing that's broken in the world that affects you in a negative way, then your talent is the tool that God gives you to fix that brokenness. And so the thing about, it already being in your hand, when I talk to some kids, if they can't tell me what they hate, some of them do, like, I don't know what I hate. I don't know what I'm passionate about. When I get to talent, some of them say the same thing. I don't know what my talent is. And you know what I tell them? I'm like, look at your parents, look at your grandparents, because this talent didn't just come out of nowhere. I can't say this part in school. It's God given, but he gives it to us through our generations. It's something that's passed on from our parents, our forefathers, right? And we recognize how this works because that's how Steph Curry is shooting threes the way he's shooting. That's how Kobe Bryant was balling the way he was balling. We recognize generational talent in athletes. We recognize generational talent in entertainers, just like we recognize that Einstein is a genius. But it's weird when we think about ourselves, we don't think that our talent operates the same way. It's generational. And so when you look at what have I been given, what's in my hand that came from the people that came before me, that informs you what God has given you to help address the thing that's broken in the world. So, my next logical question for you, Brendan, is what's your talent?
I got a talent with words.
Okay, you a wordsmith like me then. That's what I call it. I call it my talent. I'm a wordsmith. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Words. And strangely enough, like there's also a I find that it's because it's been pointed out to me more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I have I guess I seem to have some extraordinary degree of self-discipline.
Okay.
Yeah, like, and I say that because I mentioned that at talent because I invite that into the conversation because I've seen it be used like to help other people in lots of ways,
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, definitely certainly words because it's connected in music for me. It's connected in marketing writing specifically, content creation, just creative writing, yeah, and even journaling. Like so, yeah. So it always in one way or another, and then connecting with people also.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I really had to learn. That was one of the tests that I was given to learn in my management of words was that how, because I've always been one to care about people, but I went through a pretty extensive season of my life where I was pretty disconnected from a lot of people in general, like, and a lot of very very much like kind of like a recluse in a way. And I think it was because of as I investigated, you know, like it was kind of related to related to really not knowing how to articulate the way, like articulate what I wanted to articulate to people.
Yeah.
You know, and that in a combination of also like a lack of self-confidence at the time. So once I realized how much I actually care, like I said, I've always cared about people, like seeing people. I got a memory going back to fourth grade when this kid Scott was being picked on in the playground, and specifically him and his brother used to get picked on often. And I grew up, you know, this is Philly, so I'm in Germantown. We moved from Logan.
Okay.
I'm in Philly. Yeah, I'm in Philly. So it was kind of like my first day of school. I was walking to school. My first day of elementary school in that neighborhood in third grade. I had to fight because the dude didn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you know. So and then I fought like 2 or 3 times the first week. It's a pretty like it's just kind of rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
So just to give an idea, so all right, so fourth grade, and they throwing Scott's mittens over his head, back and forth, like, you know, and Scott's crying at this point, and it's freezing, it's cold. Like, yeah. I can remember his tears were like the frozen tears, you know, so you could see that. I can remember this, like, and I'll go in the middle of the circle and I jump and I snatch his mittens as they throw his mittens up. I grab them and I give them to him, and they like, I forget who exactly, but like kind of like stepped up to me like, man, I was like, yeah, you do, you know, like do it to me. Yeah. Kind of like, you know, and I was a small kid, but I only reference that to say like that's always been who I am. Like I hate injustice, like gross injustice, just when you're doing a human being wrong, when you robbing a human being of their own ability to have, you know,
humanity
experience, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, but so anyway, so me learning how to actually like take that, harness that, and like use that how I wanted to use that. It took me years to do that.
Sure.
It took me years to learn how to use my words and such in a way that like to kind of like, you know, kind of create the atmospheres, let's say, that like I wanted to create. So I was like afraid of my own power for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that with a combination of being a passionate individual, it would cause me to outburst, and I would have conflict with people because of my words. Because I didn't learn how to yet manage them. So like, you know what I mean? So like it was a worthy process. And I took all that time to say that because it's that combination of like, I call it the way the Lord gave it to me for real, like Spirit of God gave it to me like this a couple years ago. It's like, you have to embrace your moon. And it's like, everybody talks about their sun, and we live in a generation of social media. So it's like everybody talks about how bright they are. Everybody talks about their good days. All we see is, you know, mm-hmm. All we see when you buy your house. We don't see when you're eating peanut butter and jelly, or, you know what I mean? Like when
I see that.
When the hot water heater busts, and you know, and like it's already been, you know, 3 months of like more expenses than normal, and you know, you're like, man. And then something like we don't put that on social media.
Nope, sure don't.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so
embrace your moon. I see that.
Yeah. So like, so it's like, so like embrace your moon. It's like we have this idea that our moon, like our, you know, this other part that we have to manage of ourselves, like is like bad. And it's not. And because when we say it's bad, it's like we want to turn away from it, and we don't, and then we're not responsible for it because we like, oh, because we don't want to deal with that. We like, you know, so we all just presenting our best stuff out here, basically.
Right.
You know what I mean? It kind of like, I see it like we like the kid like holding all the stuff in the closet, and you're like, you know, this is all your stuff for real. So it's like, no, like talk about the fact that like you had to learn how to manage your anger, man. Like talk about that. Like talk about the fact that like, you know, like you were slick with your tongue a little bit, like because you were so good with words. You know, talk about that. Not just like, you know, like to give this idea that you've always been
that doesn't
a
work.
great manager of your talent or your ability, you know?
I tell when I get up in front of people and speak, I always do that. I'm like, look, don't think that because I'm out here as a motivational speaker and that I'm telling you about your genius, that I always got this equation right. Like I go through and tell them how I would have. I was like, if I was in fourth grade when I heard this, I would have got it all the way wrong. Let me tell you how. Because I had this problem, and I mean, you and I are very similar. I'm learning a lot because being a wordsmith, I was slick with my words too, and it was a defense mechanism to keep people from picking on me. And I was vicious with it. I was a sniper. I was like, man, I would shred your life and not even like blink. Yeah. I just got real because I was small too, and I couldn't knuckle up with people. So I knuckled up with my words, and I used them incorrectly, but now I use them to encourage people. And I see you as an encourager as well, to change your environment around you, not just for the improvement of yourself, but for the benefit of other people. Like when I heard you talk about your you know, this little boy, Scott, when you figure out what your passion is, it's not going to be something small that you hate. It's going to be something large. It's going to literally create a David and Goliath type of environment, but you're not going to care though. You're going to have the same boldness that David had. Like, who is this uncircumcised dog talking about the God that I serve though? Like, give me my, and then somebody will come along like, here, this is what you need. And he was like, no, don't give me Saul's equipment. Like, that's not what I'm used to working with. My talent is this slingshot and these 5 smooth stones. Give me that though. And you watch what I do. And then you'll see this giant fall and hell, right? So that's where we come in, and when you're driven by the right passion, because you're in your element, you're in your lane, and you have the right tools, you will not care how big the system is or the person or whatever that you're going against. You're like, yo, I'm putting a plan to address that. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's the last part of the equation. Your purpose in life is to simply discover what it is that your God-given talent has been and apply it to your God-given passion. And when you figure that out, I mean, it makes it sound easy, but it's kind of like putting together a puzzle, because you're going to have to get some stuff at the right angle and make sure it fits together. But when you fit it together, you're going to unlock this genius on the inside of you. And I see that you've already been doing it. And it doesn't surprise me, because you've been driven to the place where you're like, I'm going to change the environment around me with my words. And when my words aren't effective, then I'm going to use this self-discipline to show somebody, look, this is what I did in my life. Because you can't, genius is about, the reason why it's important to self-affirm is you can't help somebody else until you've helped yourself. And you don't have to help yourself to the point where you're completely healed of whatever the trauma is that you've experienced. But that's the most effective, knowing and embracing your move is the most effective part of ministry that we deny ourselves of, which means there's a lot of ineffective ministry out there. If you want somebody to get delivered from something, don't go. I never did drugs, so I can't talk to somebody about how not to do drugs and how to overcome it. But if I had a condition, an affliction, and I have mine, I know what to talk to men about that I've encountered and I've overcome through God, though. And when I embrace that moon, that darkness, and I'm willing to share that and be transparent, that's where somebody else gets delivered. So, you know, I see you as that fish that got off of this little island and got into the water and went to find another island and see another fish that's trying to climb a tree. And you're like, look, let me show you a better way. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Let me show you how you were designed. Come here. And I see you literally like going from, I'm still in this fish metaphor, from island to island and beginning to gather a school of fish, though, that know this is what it is, that not that you're all designed to do the same thing, because, you know, there's plenty of different type of fish in the ocean that can swim a little faster or whatever, but at least knowing, hey, look, you don't belong in that element. You on dry land. You need to be in here. And then you're equipping. I see you as an equipper, which is why you spend some time as a life coach. You're an equipper with your words, and you're an equipper with, you know, self-discipline is something that you can impart to somebody, because there's, you know, impartation is real, by way of influence and by way of example. Yeah. And I see you as doing that. I mean, you may not be in this whole life coach lane anymore or season, but it's very much within you to do that in several different areas to bring people out of this dysfunction that they're in by the power of words that you have and by this example of self-discipline.
Yeah, agreement.
We
Yeah,
we talked a little bit before I actually hit the record button, and it was something that you said, hey, look, there's something I'm working on, but it's kind of in the early stages. Whatever it is that you're working on in the early stages, it's about what I just described with these fish in this school, and just kind of snatching people up and being like, no, this is not how you're meant to function. This is not how you're going to get the high functionality that you need to have to impact and improve the world around you. I feel like it's something in that lane that you got brewing in the works.
yeah, it is. Yeah, no, it certainly is. No, that's accurate. Yeah, yeah, I've gotten fed up enough with you as you spoke about that. Like I've gotten fed up enough with people operating outside their design generally. Like, and I see like, you got all these different things for people to kind of, I think like all the different elements out here in the world, all the like with all the different options,
Mm-hmm.
there's people more to deal with, man. Like, like, and you really don't get confident until you get clear, like, because when you got so many different options, it gets even more confusing. Because
Yeah.
now you're looking and you saying, well, wait, I can, you got the whole science of like, you can be whatever you want to be. It's like, why do you go, but that's pulling you outside of your being.
Mm-hmm.
And your being is in that. So it's like, so what I'm, yeah, like what I've been pointed towards to develop is some form of some sort of essentially of it's a platform for sure, but it's really educational. It's educational based, mixed with a degree of what we would probably call we would probably say entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But because, and that's only because psychologically and really the sort of psychology of the human being, and really also just being like having some form of having being able to kind of come into parallel with what like some of the streams that's existing, to be able to invite information similar to what you're doing, Reg, really like to invite information to people that can disrupt their current paradigm, you know.
Paradigms, man, is what it's all about.
Yeah, and really the reason why I know, like the reason why I waited so long since I closed my the fitness studio, which was in 2020, um almost 2 years ago exactly, and I've been pretty much like writing for the most part since.
Okay.
uh yeah, like in one capacity or another. um the reason why I took that time is like, you see the example in scripture, like you see Paul, you see you see Yeshua, you see Christ, man. Like you see, you see his daily preparation, the references of his daily preparation, or even his preparation up until the point of time of where he was baptized and entered into his ministry. Like
Mm-hmm.
the time that we take to prepare is like a lot of times if we're not willing to like dedicate that time, and
Yep.
we don't give ourselves time to be inspired. And I realized that like I was grateful for that, and it was difficult for me because I've been in so the thing we talk about performing is like this idea of people, like kind of like you want to be like successful for others to see in a way and be like, oh man, he did it again. And I
Right.
found myself in that where it was like, man, I'm closing this business, and I'm like, I kind of, like I've been doing a little bit, I'm giving myself credit, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I ain't even 40 yet. At the time, I'm like, it's not did this, I'm like, and it's kind of like, whoa, like, but what's really important? Like, what are you doing though? You know what I mean? Like, so sitting down, I realized that like that thing of like what would you do? Like that classic, like what would you do if it's not about money at all, man?
Yep.
Like not about like if it's really like what do you really care about? And like it took me time. It took me time. It took me pain. I had to dig in through elements of my past, my upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
like stuff I didn't want to touch, and it was all, and the message was all in that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and it
Yep.
became
Always is.
clear.
It always is, man.
For me, man. And like I can't do anything else at this point, you know? Like, and I think that's what I went through all of that to say, like, that's what people really need to hear to like be okay with with being in the mud, so to say.
Yeah.
Like,
To not being in the limelight. Like, all right,
yeah,
I'm off to the side. This is a season of rest so that you can quiet everything else out in here. But we're in a society that has no moon. It's just day to day to day to day. There's no day, night, day, night, day, night. There's day, 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 day. I always got to be shining. I always got to be bright. And you're going to burn out. You're literally going to burn out doing it.
100%. Yeah, nobody want to go on the side. Like, that's like the idea of going on the sideline, which means like, and then I got a friend that talked about this. He stepped down from ministry and essentially left, not essentially, he left his job at his job in a position organization where basically he was like the man, you know. But he was supposed to do that. He was led to do that all essentially in the same season, right? And like, he was, one of his biggest things he was dealing with was, what do I tell people when they ask me what I'm doing?
Yeah, that's hard. It's tough.
You know what I mean? Like, we deal with these psychological issues, like, and you sit back and you question, you're like, what was, like, I'm a grown man, and my biggest concern is, what am I going to say when they ask me what I'm doing?
Man, you are ministering to me right now. I just need you to know that. So it's a struggle, man. You've helped me even in this conversation, because I have been in this season where it's just like, okay, I know what God has called me to do, but I'm not doing it in the fullest degree yet. But he's told me why, though. He's told me why, and I'm hearing him, but I'm still kind of like, but I need, but people got to see that I'm doing something, and just that in the third, because otherwise, like, but why am I focusing on, if I have this open relationship with God, why am I concerned? You said it at the beginning of the interview. Why are you concerned about what everybody else is doing? Yeah. Like, they don't even, it sounds ignorant to say this, but they don't even matter. As long as you have this connection, these connections mean nothing unless you have this connection, and you're fostering that, nurturing that.
It's everything. Yeah, I mean, it is.
Like you said, the flesh is always just kind of like just. It's why you always got to die to it daily, because it keeps growing back like weeds. It keeps growing back and growing back these old habits, these old ways of thinking. You're like, doggone it, I thought I repented of that, and I'm not thinking this way anymore. But Paul said that I do not do, and the thing that I do not do, I do. And I do not wish to do, I do. So it's just always this duplicity that we're dealing with this spirit and flesh.
Yeah, and daily we got to keep under, like, daily. That's the thing. I was just having that conversation with my oldest son. Like, I'm like, dude, like, it's like the easiest way to put it is like, this is me in my years as a fitness coach. Is people would try to use that, like I said, like, to say like, oh, it's easy for you. I'm saying, like, there's no difference between me having to go to make sure that I have a certain source of my food, to prepare it, to consume a certain food, all that stuff requires decisions and energy. It's the same thing. It's not easy for anybody. Nah. It's not easy. Every time I go run 2 miles, it's still me running 2 miles.
Right.
If I don't challenge myself, I know that I'm the only one that comes into equation in the spirit of God. Like at the end of the day, it's literally like, okay, so I mean, are you cool with being mediocre? That's what it comes down to. It's like, if you're okay with dealing with yourself every day in the way that you are, then don't change anything.
Right.
But like that, like that's all it. But the whole thing of dressing up the outside, like that's the, like you said, this is how clear it is that the flesh be trying to do with it doesn't cause the question. Because it's like Adam and Eve, first thing they're doing is like going getting dressed, covering themselves up. Man, I gotta make myself up. It's just like, but the whole time being led by being motivated, influenced by the spirit, it's like the spirit is like, it's almost like, the way I see that, it's almost like you gotta tell somebody, like, it's like, you look silly like that. It's like And it's like, I'm just dancing. You know, it's like, because you concerned about what it looked like, or you
Yeah.
concerned about making it look how, formed and organized, this, that, and the third. Marlon Wayans was just talking about, I know I just segued that, like, but I heard him. It was his clip where he was basically, it was on the Breakfast Club. Actually, he was just saying
Okay.
how, and it was a clip that I caught, and he was just saying, and it's only because it's relevant. He was saying how the difference between him, he feels that the difference between him and I guess, like, some others, is just that he was never afraid to, like, look stupid or fail. He was like, he knew that eventually in time he gets everything. So he's like, I don't care if, like, you feel like my movies suck, or you feel like this, or you feel like, he's like, I'm more so concerned, I'm more so focused on my process and doing what I'm
Yeah.
feeling and what I'm in, and what I'm in love with. Like, I'm just doing it, and I know that like, basically, like, it's going, just paint. That's
Yeah.
the big thing that people be afraid of, and, like, and darkness keeps us like that, spinning, afraid of ourselves. Like, we don't want to look stupid. It's like, nah, man, like, just paint.
It goes back to that fail. First attempt at learning. But if you never make that first attempt, you're not going to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, like, let it go. Like, see what happens. Unfold. That's all we doing anyway. If you think about it, we unfold, and then you look back, and you like, everything that was going to happen is going to happen. Like, it's really, purpose, the word, it's like, the word, it's in the semantics of in the actual, the breakdown and the etymology of purpose. It's already something that already is, that's involved in it. It's you can't, like, make your purpose or develop your purpose. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's trusting it. That's the issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is letting go.
Man, you
Is
got into
letting
the
go.
etymology of a word. You got into the root. Okay. All right.
But, like, but that's the thing we need to be, because, man, people need to just know that, like, man, it's a beauty in just being, man. Like, don't, like, the same way you're not thinking about anybody, the guy that, like, was looking silly when he crossed the street. Nobody, you're not thinking about that guy a minute later. Like, nobody's thinking about you messing up.
Yeah. But our vanity makes us think that,
Nobody cares. Like, just end of the day, everybody's waiting to see somebody do it anyway. Everybody's waiting to see somebody be extraordinary. Everybody's waiting to see. That's why we go to basketball games and football games and concerts and, and book signings, and because we waiting to see people, and watch movies when they come out, because we either waiting to see people fall, we waiting to see people fail or fly. Like, that's it. We like to laugh and, like, be amazed. And so at the end of the day, man, give people the show that they're gonna get anyway.
whether fail or fly, right?
Live your life, man. Live your life. Live your life. Either way, you're gonna inspire somebody. You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it by accident. Like, just live your life, and just, the biggest thing is just being okay with how it unfolds.
Yeah.
It's like really letting go to the idea that God may actually have it all planned out.
Fail, fly, and unfold. That's what I just heard. I like that. Fail, fly, and unfold. Let's end right there, man, because I like that. You should just live your life just in knowing that whether you fail, fly, you're going to unfold. And that's what it's all about, in coming into your purpose, understanding your genius. Brendan, this has not disappointed by any means. I knew, because I've been seeing what you've been putting out there on social media. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come through. To Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, motivational speaker, author, publisher, minister, Reggie Key, and this has been my genius guest, Brendan Brown. Brendan, it's my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
My brother, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been amazing, man. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed the conversation, man. And I appreciate you for the opportunity and the opportunity to get back up, bro. It's been truly, truly, truly blessed, and I'm really grateful, man. So grateful for this. So
likewise.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.